In the shimmering yet fragile world of the bold and the beautiful, where desire and deception often walk hand in hand, the episode airing on April 14th unfolds like a quiet emotional earthquake. One that does not shatter everything at once, but instead cracks the foundations of every relationship involved, forcing each character to confront truths they have long tried to ignore. The tension does not erupt immediately. It lingers, it breathes, it tightens slowly around the hearts of those entangled within it, creating an atmosphere where every glance, every silence, every unspoken thought carries the weight of a decision waiting to be made. At the center of this storm stands Melissa Dillon, whose journey in this moment is defined not by grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but by the quiet, devastating realization that sometimes love is not enough to justify staying, and that walking away may be the only way to preserve what remains of oneself. Dillon's emotional struggle is not born in a single moment, but rather accumulates through a series of pressures that gradually erode her sense of stability. The ultimatum delivered by Electra is the catalyst, but it is not the only force at play. Electra's demand that Dillon leave the beach house, framed as a condition for peace and respect, carries an undercurrent of possessiveness that reveals far more about Electra's insecurities than it does about Dillon's place in Will's life. For Dillon, the demand is not simply about relocating. It is about being erased, about being told that her presence is incompatible with a future she has quietly begun to imagine. And yet, what makes this moment truly painful is not the ultimatum itself, but the recognition that Electra's fear is not entirely unfounded, that there is a truth buried beneath the conflict that Dillon can no longer deny. That truth centers on Will Spencer, a man whose emotional indecision becomes the gravitational force pulling everyone into orbit around his unresolved feelings. Will does not intentionally create chaos, yet his inability to fully let go of the past ensures that chaos continues to follow him. His confrontation with Electra at the Forrester showroom is not merely a continuation of their previous conflict, but a moment in which buried emotions resurface with a clarity that neither of them can ignore. Electra confesses that she still loves him, that despite everything, despite the misunderstandings and the pain, there remains a possibility for reconciliation. But this confession is not offered freely. It is bound to a condition, to the demand that Dillon be removed from the equation, as if love can only exist in the absence of competition. What Electra does not realize, however, is that her understanding of the situation is fundamentally incomplete. She believes that Will has rejected her, that his actions, refusing to send Dillon away, ignoring her letter, discarding the necklace she made, are evidence of his indifference. She carries this belief like a shield, using it to justify her own actions, including her growing closeness with R.J. Forrester. And yet, she remains unaware of a critical truth, one that shifts the entire emotional landscape. Will has seen her kiss R.J. This moment, hidden from her knowledge, becomes the silent fracture that undermines everything she believes about their relationship. It is a truth that Will carries alone, a wound that shapes his response even as Electra continues to speak from a place of misunderstanding. This imbalance of knowledge creates a profound dramatic irony, one that heightens the tension between them. Electra speaks of love and possibility, unaware that her actions have already altered Will's perception in ways that cannot be easily undone. Will listens, caught between what he feels and what he has seen, unable to reconcile the woman standing before him with the image that continues to haunt him. His silence becomes a space filled with unspoken questions, with doubts that he cannot yet articulate. And it is within this silence that the true weight of Electra's ultimatum begins to take shape. Meanwhile, the aftermath of Will's confrontation with RJ continues to ripple outward, adding another layer of emotional complexity to the narrative. RJ, driven by a certainty that contrasts sharply with Will's hesitation, finds himself at a crossroads where love demands action rather than reflection. His argument with Will is not simply about Electra. It is about identity, about proving that he is no longer the passive observer, but an active participant in his own story. When he recounts this conflict to Brooke Logan Forrester, he seeks not only comfort but validation, a confirmation that his feelings are not misplaced, that his pursuit of Electra is justified. Brooke's response is both predictable and deeply influential. She does not discourage RJ. Instead, she reinforces his instincts, urging him to follow his heart with a conviction that reflects her own history of passionate, often complicated relationships. To Brooke, love is not something to be approached cautiously. It is something to be pursued, even when the path is uncertain. Her encouragement serves as a catalyst, pushing RJ toward a boldness that may ultimately redefine the dynamics between all three of them. Yet, in doing so, she also contributes to the escalation of tension, amplifying a situation that is already teetering on the edge of collapse. Amidst all of this, Dylan's internal conflict reaches its breaking point. She is not blind to the reality of Will's feelings, nor is she unaware of the lingering connection between him and Electra. She recognizes that she may be fighting a battle she cannot win, that no matter how genuine her connection with Will may be, it exists within the shadow of something deeper, something unresolved. And yet, what makes her decision so painful is not simply the realization that she may lose Will, but the understanding that staying may cost her something even greater: her dignity, her sense of self, her ability to exist as more than a secondary choice. Electra's demand that Dylan leave the beach house becomes the focal point of this realization. It is a demand framed as a test of respect, a way to restore balance. But for Dylan, it represents a line that cannot be crossed without consequence. To comply would be to accept a role defined by someone else's insecurity, to allow her life to be shaped by conditions that do not reflect her own worth. And yet, to refuse would be to invite further conflict, to remain in a space where she is no longer welcome, where every interaction becomes a reminder of her precarious position. It is within this tension that Dylan makes her decision, one that carries the weight of heartbreak and quiet resignation. Her choice is not driven by weakness, but by clarity, by the recognition that sometimes the most painful path is also the most honest one. To step away, to remove herself from the situation, is not an admission of defeat, but an act of self-preservation, a refusal to continue existing within a narrative that does not fully belong to her. And yet, even as she makes this decision, there's a lingering sense that it does not resolve the deeper issues at play, that her departure is only the beginning of a new set of complications rather than the end of the current ones. Because even if Dylan leaves the beach house, even if she physically removes herself from Will's immediate environment, she remains connected to him through her work at Forrester Creations, through the daily interactions that cannot be avoided. Her presence, though altered, cannot be erased, and this reality ensures that Electra's sense of control remains incomplete. The ultimatum, intended to simplify the situation, instead reveals its inherent complexity, highlighting the fact that emotional entanglements cannot be resolved through physical distance alone. As the episode moves forward, the focus shifts back to Will, whose impending choice looms over everything. His decision is not merely about choosing between two women. It is about confronting the consequences of his own actions, about acknowledging the role he has played in creating the very situation he now struggles to navigate. We'll stand at a crossroads where every path leads to loss, where every choice carries a cost that cannot be avoided. To choose Electra may mean letting go of the stability and honesty he has found with Dylan, while to choose Dylan may mean turning away from a love that still burns despite its complications. What makes this moment so compelling is the absence of a clear right answer. There is no path that guarantees happiness, no decision that resolves all conflict. Instead, the narrative embraces the ambiguity of human emotion, acknowledging that love is often defined not by certainty, but by contradiction, by the coexistence of desire and doubt, of hope and fear. Each character moves forward with their own understanding of what is right, yet those understandings are shaped by incomplete information, by personal bias, by emotional wounds that have yet to heal. And so, as the episode draws to a close, the sense of resolution remains elusive. Dylan's decision, though significant, does not end the conflict. It merely shifts its focus. Electra's ultimatum, though decisive in its intent, fails to provide the clarity she seeks. RJ's boldness, fueled by Brooke's encouragement, introduces a new dynamic that threatens to further complicate an already fragile situation. And Will, standing at the center of it all, is left to grapple with a choice that will define not only his relationships, but his understanding of love itself. In the end, the true power of this storyline lies in its ability to capture the quiet devastation of emotional truth, the way in which love can both elevate and destroy, the way in which even the most sincere intentions can lead to unintended consequences. It is a reminder that in the world of the bold and the beautiful, as in life, the most difficult decisions are not those between right and wrong, but those between two equally painful truths, where the only certainty is that whatever choice is made, something precious will inevitably be left behind. In the ever-unpredictable world of the bold and the beautiful, peace is never what it seems, and safety is often nothing more than a fragile illusion waiting to be shattered at the precise moment when its victims allow themselves to believe in it. The closing moments of Friday's episode do not erupt into chaos with loud confrontation or immediate violence, but instead unfold with a chilling subtlety that lingers far longer in the mind, embedding itself into the emotional core of the story like a quiet warning that something far more dangerous is already in motion. It is within this quiet, deceptive calm that Sheila Carter reveals the truth that changes everything, not through words spoken aloud, but through presence, through observation, through the undeniable fact that she has not left town at all and that her absence, once believed to be an act of sacrifice, was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie. At the center of this fragile illusion stands Deacon Sharp, a man who has convinced himself that he has finally found a way out of the emotional chaos that has defined his relationship with Sheila. For Deacon, the belief that Sheila has willingly stepped aside is not merely comforting, it is transformative. It allows him to imagine a future that had once seemed impossible, a future in which he can rebuild something real with Taylor Hayes, a woman who represents stability, compassion, and the possibility of redemption. When he shares this belief with Taylor and his children, it is not done with hesitation or doubt, but with a quiet confidence that suggests he has chosen to trust in something better, to believe that Sheila, despite everything she has done, is capable of letting go. This belief, however, is built on a misunderstanding so profound that it transforms every moment of happiness into something precarious, something that could collapse at any second. As Deacon and Taylor sit together, allowing themselves a rare moment of peace, their connection feels genuine, almost fragile in its sincerity. The kiss they share is not just an expression of affection. It is a symbol of hope, of a new beginning that seems, for a brief moment, within reach. Deacon sees Taylor with his children, sees the way she fits into his life with a natural ease that contrasts sharply with the chaos he has known before, and he allows himself to believe that perhaps the worst is behind them. But it is precisely in this moment of vulnerability, this moment when defenses are lowered and trust is given freely, that the truth reveals itself in the most haunting way possible. Outside, unseen yet unmistakably present, Sheila watches. Her gaze, fixed upon the scene unfolding inside, is not one of sorrow or resignation, but of calculation, of something far darker and more deliberate. When she turns away from the window, the expression on her face speaks volumes, suggesting not defeat, but anticipation, not loss, but intention. It is in this silent observation that the true nature of Sheila's character reasserts itself, reminding the audience that she is not someone who walks away quietly, not someone who relinquishes control without a plan. The revelation that Sheila has lied about leaving town is not merely a plot twist. It is a fundamental shift in the emotional stakes of the story. It reframes everything that has come before, casting doubt on every word she has spoken, every promise she has made. In her conversation with Deacon, she had assured him that she would not harm anyone he loves, presenting herself as someone capable of restraint, someone willing to change. But the act of remaining, of hiding in plain sight, suggests that this promise may be nothing more than another layer of manipulation, another tool in a much larger scheme that is yet to fully reveal itself. What makes Sheila's presence so unsettling is not just her history, but the unpredictability that defines her actions. Her past is marked by acts of violence that are as calculated as they are extreme, each one revealing a willingness to cross boundaries that most would never even consider approaching. Her role in the death of Lance, orchestrated through something as methodical and cruel as releasing Africanized bees into his room, demonstrates not only her capacity for violence, but her ability to exploit vulnerability with chilling precision. Similarly, her involvement in the death of Dr. J. Garvin, though framed as accidental, underscores the volatile nature of her interactions, the way in which even moments of conflict can escalate into irreversible consequences. These past actions are not merely historical details. They are essential to understanding the threat she now represents. Sheila does not act impulsively without purpose. Her actions, no matter how extreme, are often driven by a logic that is uniquely her own, a logic that prioritizes control, revenge, and emotional dominance above all else. This makes her current silence, her decision to observe rather than immediately act, all the more disturbing. It suggests that whatever she is planning is not yet ready to unfold, that she is waiting for the precise moment when her actions will have the greatest impact. For Deacon, the danger lies not only in Sheila's presence, but in his own vulnerability. By believing that she has left, he has lowered his guard, allowed himself to step into a space where he is no longer constantly anticipating her next move. This shift in awareness creates an opening, a moment of weakness that Sheila is almost certain to exploit. Whether her target is Deacon himself or those he loves remains uncertain, but the potential for harm is undeniable. Her promise not to hurt anyone he cares about introduces a new layer of complexity, raising the question of whether she will honor that promise or twist it into something far more insidious. One possibility is that Sheila's revenge will not be direct, but psychological, aimed not at physical harm, but at emotional destruction. By targeting Deacon in a way that forces him to confront his own choices, his own role in the unraveling of their relationship, she could inflict a kind of pain that is far more enduring than any physical injury. Alternatively, she may choose to reinterpret her promise, convincing herself that her actions do not constitute harm, even as they lead to devastating consequences for those around her. This ambiguity is what makes her so dangerous, the way in which she can justify almost anything within the framework of her own beliefs. Meanwhile, Taylor's position within this unfolding drama becomes increasingly precarious. She represents everything Sheila is not: stability, compassion, emotional clarity, and it is precisely these qualities that make her a potential target. Taylor believes that the situation has been resolved, that Sheila has stepped aside, and in that belief lies her greatest vulnerability. She is not prepared for the possibility that the threat remains, that the danger has simply shifted from the visible to the unseen. As she allows herself to grow closer to Deacon, to invest in a future that feels increasingly real, she unknowingly steps into the path of something that could shatter that future before it has the chance to fully take shape. The presence of Hope Logan and Deke further complicates the situation, expanding the scope of potential consequences. Sheila's promise not to harm those Deacon loves may extend to them, or it may become a loophole through which she navigates her own desires for revenge. If she chooses to target them directly, she risks breaking the very promise she used to gain Deacon's trust. But if she finds a way to involve them indirectly, to create circumstances that lead to harm without her direct intervention. She could maintain the illusion of keeping her word while still achieving her goals. As the story moves forward, the question of Sheila's next move becomes the central source of tension. Will she strike quickly, capitalizing on the element of surprise, or will she continue to wait, allowing the situation to develop further before intervening? Will her actions be driven by anger, by a desire for immediate retribution, or by a more calculated plan designed to maximize emotional impact? These questions linger, unanswered, creating a sense of anticipation that permeates every scene. What is certain, however, is that Sheila's presence ensures that the illusion of safety cannot last. The peace that Deacon and Taylor have begun to build is fragile, dependent on a belief that has already been proven false. The love they are trying to nurture exists within a space that is already compromised, already under threat, and the longer they remain unaware of that threat, the greater the potential for devastation when the truth finally emerges. In this way, the narrative captures something deeply resonant about the nature of fear and trust, the way in which the most dangerous threats are often those we believe to be gone, the ones we stop watching for, the ones we convince ourselves no longer have power over us. Sheila embodies this threat perfectly, not because of what she has done, but because of what she is capable of doing next, because of the uncertainty that surrounds her, the sense that anything could happen at any moment, and that when it does, it will not simply disrupt the lives of those involved, but fundamentally alter them. And so, as the story lingers on that final image, on the quiet, almost imperceptible shift from perceived safety to hidden danger, it leaves behind a question that refuses to be easily answered, a question that echoes long after the episode ends. What will Sheila do next? And when she finally makes her move, who will be left standing in the aftermath of a plan